Greetings. You found a secret door. And behind today's secret door, how you should divide loot. You found a secret door, and today's secret door, how you need to divide loot. My name is Matt Morich, and Secret Door is a channel discussing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, sometimes some other role-playing games too. So, loot. The Player's Handbook, I think it's in the Player's Handbook, it might be in the Dungeon Master's Guide, describes 3 pillars of play. We have combat, exploration, and social. I would argue that there's a 4th, and that's treasure, or loot. Loot's fun. Opening a treasure chest is just fun. It's like a tiny little role-playing Christmas. So, the division of that loot, and let's define terms real quick. When I say loot, I'm really referring to magic items, right? I mean, gold just gets divided up amongst the party. Not so easy with magic items. Sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes it is. So I'm going to describe the 2 most common ways that loot is divided up at tables. And then I'm going to propose a 3rd way that I think you'll like. You might not like it, but I think you'll agree that it is more thorough, more fair. We'll see. All right, so the first way, I'm going to call this style the gimme style. Gimme, 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 gimme. This is players that all want magic items. It doesn't have to be the whole party. It could just be 1 player. It could be 2 players, whatever. But they see a magic item. They want magic item. And what this will cause, naturally, is a lot of arguments. These same players keep wanting when they want it. They don't really care what everybody else has. They see a magic item. They want it. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense for their character to have that magic item. They want it anyway. Well, this is common in players that are new to the game or to younger players. I think you'd be surprised that the gimme style players still pop up, even though they've been playing for a long time and they may be middle-aged. They're out there. They just are. Now, by that time, they've learned how to curb the gimme, gimme, gimme sufficiently that they're not disruptive, usually. Usually. But they're out there. So I'm not going to spend too much time on gimme, gimme. I think it burns out pretty quick. It's pretty destructive. There's really not much to recommend it. So we'll move on to the second style. And the second style is, I can use that. And by that, you are dividing up loot and a magic item is found, and one player says, hey, I can use that. And another player says, yeah, you know what? You can use that. Why don't you take that? This is a very egalitarian approach to divvying up treasure. It's also kind of a conceit of the game. It's really metagaming is what it is. And I'm not one of those people that, metagaming bad. Metagaming's fine. Metagaming happens all throughout the game. And it happens, I think, most obviously when dividing up loot and when using the I can use that method. Let's get into an example here. So you have, you've finished an encounter and you've got you've earned 5,000 gold pieces in gold and one magic item worth 5,000 gold pieces. There are 4 players. One player says he wants the magic item. The other players agree. So that one player got 5,000 gold value in his magic item. And what it's generally, and there can be table variances here, but generally speaking, gold is still divided evenly amongst the party. So 10,000 gold pieces of value divided by 4 players would be a share of 2,500 per player, right? But the player who took the magic item got 5,000 gold in value and 1,250 from the gold. So they're sitting at 6,250 and everybody else is at 1,250. Is that right? Is that fair? I don't think it's fair. And it's banking, all the players are banking on the idea that everybody's going to get a magic item sometime. They got theirs now. I'm going to get mine maybe in the very next room of this dungeon. Who knows? Maybe by the end of the dungeon, I'll have a magic item that I like. I hope. There's a lot of problems here. And my biggest problem, really, is that it's immersion breaking. I'm not saying that somebody shouldn't get the magic item, but to get the magic item and a share of the gold, that's a bit much. Now, even if your party, your particular table, wouldn't divide the gold to that player because he got his share with the magic item, he's still coming out like a robber. And again, this is a total metagame idea. Well, I'm going to be in that situation too, so it's all going to even out. Maybe it will and maybe it won't. It really kind of depends on how many magic items your DM is likely to give or how often they give them. Some dungeon masters are very stingy with magic items. Some are very liberal and open-handed with them. It's just throwing them around. So there's no telling. And why I say it's immersion breaking is your characters, presumably, are adventuring to get treasure. Now, I know that's not always the case. Some characters are very high-minded. They're heroic, idyllic characters, idealist characters. That still doesn't change the fact that they're mortal creatures. I can't say human because they could be elves. So a mortal creature, a sentient creature, a human being is going to want their fair share. They're going to want what the value was, but they're not getting that. And so you may go through the entire dungeon and another magic item isn't found and the gold keeps getting divvied up amongst the players, and nobody except that one person got the magic item and they got 5,000 more gold in value than anybody else in the party. Now, this can create real problems down the line. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm operating on the assumption here that players are going to be able to acquire magic items by some method by buying them. I know that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, it's very anti-magic shop where, a Vorpal blade is hanging on the, wall of the shop, and there's a staff of the Magi back there too. It can get ridiculous. I get it. But in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, downtime activities, they list acquiring magic items and the process that you have to go through to get them. And if you're a dungeon master out there who doesn't want to do magic shops, I totally support that point. But I would really encourage you to apply the downtime activity of acquiring magic items. Listen, we're talking about a D&D world where magic is ever present, right? So, you have first level casters who are able to just throw cantrips like that. Magic is everywhere. So the idea that it would be absurd to have a magic shop, it's not absurd. And it's certainly not absurd that people would want to sell a magic item. Maybe they're in a financial bind. Maybe they just inherited the thing and don't want it, don't need it, and would rather have the money. There's all kinds of reasons. But if you're would just encourage you, as if you're a DM, to use that downtime activity from Xanathar's. I think I get the problem with it. I really do. Acquiring magic items in literature or film, in fantasy stories, always happens on an adventure. Well, almost always. Frodo got handed the ring. Almost always happens on an adventure. And you certainly don't see anybody picking one up at a shop. So I get it. It's not heroic at all. But those worlds are also not like the world of Dungeons and Dragons. They're just not. So I don't know. I'd say get over it and let them buy them. What's going to happen anyway is that the players most likely are not going to be buying big power bending magic items anyway. They're probably going to buy a bunch of little stuff that rounds out their character and shores up defenses, a cloak of protection, a hat of disguise, something that they can, maybe winged boots. Those are pretty powerful and pretty cheap, really. But I wouldn't think that you're going to see lots of legendary items being purchased, for example, and even very rares are really expensive. So by the time they're able to buy one, they're probably powerful enough to have found one anyway. So it shouldn't upset your power curve. Okay, so let's get back to immersion real quick. And then I'm going to talk about one more problem, and then we'll get to what I think is the solution to this whole mess. So just to put the immersion thing into full clarity here, let's forget D&D for a minute, and let's take a real world example. An absurd example, to be sure, but let's just bear with me. So you and 3 friends decide that you're going to go on a string of robbing houses over the next few nights. In the first house, you find $5,000 in cash and a Rolex. The Rolex is worth $5,000 in cash. You got you and 3 friends, so 4 of you. That's $10,000. That's $10,000, so that's $2,500 each, right? Well, one of your buddies says, "Hey, you know what? I can pull off a Rolex. Yeah, I'll take the Rolex." And everybody's just looking at each other and, "What do you mean? We're going to sell that to the fence. We're going to make $10,000. Everybody's going to come out 20. No. I can use that Rolex." You see what I mean? Not counting a magic item as a thing of value that is everybody's property is a flawed idea. And it strains credulity to be expecting characters to just go, "Oh, sure, okay, that's right. You can have half the loot yourself." It's tough. It's total metagame thinking. That's the only reason it exists. Now, having said all of this, there is something, as I said earlier, to be said for the I can use it style. It's simple. It is egalitarian. You're still going to have arguments with it. Those are going to still pop up because there's going to be 2, maybe 3 people that are going to want that magic item. And then, how do you solve that? It depends on how stubborn each of those players is or how compelling and persuasive they can be. And when that happens, and if you lose out and the other guy wins the magic item, especially if it's a long, protracted argument, oh my gosh, these things can go on and on and on. You can build up resentments. It's very, very possible. And that's just not, and this is a game we play for fun. You want to just minimize as much of negative emotion as you can possibly get rid of. And I'm not saying this is happening all the time, but over the course of a longer campaign, it can happen. All right, so the second point of a problem with this style is if you're getting a share of the gold and you're getting the magic item, first of all, a DM is not going to hand out the same power level of magic item to every single player at the table. Not going to happen. Somebody's going to get a really good one, maybe a really, really, really good one. And then a couple of other people are going to get really good ones. And then somebody's going to get a good one and maybe another good one. Well, you know, the really, really, really good ones are really, really, really good. That by itself is an imbalance in power, and that's part of the game. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. I bring it up simply because it's one of the premise of this whole style is that, oh, everybody will come out even. No, they won't. They won't. And so what happens is players will, with the higher end items, still have the same amount of gold that the other players have so that they can acquire magic items at the same level that the other characters can. So they can shore up their defenses. They can get that cloak of protection or the winged boots or whatever you want to get. And it there's no way other than the will of the DM. And, you know, that's just the fact. It's the will of the DM. You're relying on that. And if you don't find one, you're not going to find it. Now, you could save up all your money as a lower level magic item person and try and get a big item yourself. You could do that. It'll take a while. Those things are expensive. And of course, the other guy who has the big item, he could do that too and have two. So it's just not a very stable solution. And then you get into the other problem where there's always these little items that come up that are, they might be consumables. They might be scrolls. Well, that's a consumable. Wands, little magic items that by themselves nobody particularly wants. And there's that player that goes, well, I'll take it. Nobody wants it. And in this style, in the I can use that style, you just get it. Over time, if that player still is able to pull this off time after time after time, they can be acquiring quite a bit of very low level magic items. Admittedly, these are not items that other people wanted, but they still had value. I mean, the really dirty trick that this player could pull off is turn around and sell those things. And now he's got more gold and value than anybody else. I mean, that can happen. So these are the problems I see with the I can use that style. I am not here to defame it. I've played in that style 90% of my gaming career. So it's not that I have a big problem with it. There's just a couple little problems I have. The power imbalance one is the one I think that is potentially the most dangerous from a game balance standpoint. But the immersion thing is just really annoying to me. It just really is. I mean, my character I'm playing may be super high-minded, not really care about money, but I'm the player that has to watch this happen and go, that's just not right. So that's just my feeling on it. I would gladly play in that style. Again, don't get me wrong. But the style I'm going to suggest next, it's not going to be for everybody. I'm not making this up out of whole cloth. I'm just adding a couple of things to it. I played in a more primitive form of this many years ago. And like I said, these extra little tweaks on it, I think, push it over the top for me. But there's one other thing about this. How you divide loot is not your decision. It's not even the game master's decision. It's the party's decision. So if you, watching this video, really like this thing and go, gosh, Matt, I really want to use this, well, then share this with your table and let them be the judge and then just take a vote on it. Or, describe it yourself and take a vote on it. Or just take aspects of what I'm about to describe and then take a vote on it. But you're going to have to take a vote. You can't just unilaterally employ this. All right, so what we're going to call this is the ledger style. And the ledger style means that you're going to keep a ledger. Big surprise. And most parties do this to some form anyway. Somebody keeps a list of all the treasure gained, right? Well, in the ledger, all you're really doing is noting the treasure, you're noting what the share would be, and you're noting the magic items and who received them. In this case, let's go back to the 5,000 gold and the 5,000 gold piece magic item. In the ledger style, the guy that, or gal, that took the 5,000 gold piece magic item is now, if you remember, it's 10,000 total value divided by 4 would be 2,500. He took 5. So he is now, or she, is into the party for 2,500 gold, and that is noted on the ledger. So in the next room they go into, or the next encounter where they find treasure, they get 8,000 gold. Divided by 4 would be 2,000. But it's not divided by 4 really. It's divided by 3. The fourth guy is still paying off his debt to the party. So now he's only in to the party for 500 gold. And so on and so on and so on until they restore equilibrium. In this case, what I would employ is the rule in the party that if you are in debt to the party, you cannot indebt yourself again, meaning the very next encounter there could be a magic item and you could say you wanted to make a claim on that magic item. Now, if nobody else is going to use it, I would let that player use it for the rest of the adventure, but they don't own it. Now, it could be that by the time this adventure is over with, they will have earned enough that they're back in the black with the party and could buy that magic item from the party. And if they want to do that, they can. But I would, like I said, I would make that a restraint to a player from going double in debt, triple in debt, what have you. Now, how do you assign value? And assigning a value to a magic item right away is very, very important. And what I would suggest you do is use the values listed in Xanathars for the different rarity types of magic items. And I would just use the average, but you can do it however you want. So for an uncommon item in Xanathars, it would be 350 gold. For a rare item, it would be, 7,000 gold. And for a very rare item, that would be 35,000 gold. And for a legendary item, 175,000 gold. Now, just imagine you're a low-level player, let's say. Let's say you're 4th level, and your DM drops a legendary item on you. You're thrilled. You're ecstatic. You're over the moon. And you got it. You're 175,000 in debt to the party. You ain't seeing gold for probably, 10 levels, maybe more. And that's going to be your one item because you can't go back and claim anything else. That's a really extreme example and one that probably would never happen. But you get the picture. I mean, even if it were a very rare item, you're still looking at 35,000 gold. It's going to delay your ability to pay off the party for a while. So, finding the big item may not, especially early, may not be a real blessing. But I think you'll see how this began by determining the value and dividing that way. You are truly balancing out the way it's supposed to be. Everybody's supposed to be getting an equal share, but in the other system, they're not. They just are not. There's a constant imbalance. This imbalance is at least checked, and it's being tracked and recorded. So you're not just relying on fuzzy memories and stuff like that that'll go away. If you have 2 players that want the same item using the ledger system, what they can do if they can't agree any other way, and it's getting to be one of those massive marathon conversations or arguments, call for a bid as a party. Just bid. And what I mean by that is if it's the 5,000 gold piece item, as per the previous example, they bid up on how much they would be willing to go into debt to the party for. So they could say, I'll go 6,000, I'll go 7, I'll go 8. And you could really hose yourself here really, really easily. But you would have the magic item in hand. And in the downtime activities thing in Xanathars, there's no guarantee you're going to find what you're looking for. And it may take a while to get it. You're going to have what you want in your hand. Well, presumably what you want in your hand, and you'll have it now. It may be worth it. to go a little higher. It may be worth it. Maybe not. It just depends on the magic item and how that relates to your character. Or maybe you just really like it and want to use it. Now, what this also does, one of the happy benefits of this, I would think, is that if you have a party member who is more introverted or maybe even shy, a person that in the I can use that style might not step forward to claim a magic item, even though they do want it, but they don't want to seem greedy, or like I said, they're shy, they're soft spoken, it's not in their nature. Then that person has this very obvious way of approaching it. And they know they're not being greedy. They have just as much of a right to that item as anybody else, and the system is there. And they'll see that, hopefully. And further, they don't have to sit and argue, they can just bid. It solves a lot of problems. So in this system, you avoid a lot of resentments, I would think, because it's fair. Is it anal? Yep. But it's fair. All right. Well, that's all I got on this one. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. If you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. And until next time, I cast bless on all of you.